Hey students, welcome to another Mr. Ness screencast. Today's aim is early sectional conflicts, and here are your objectives. Please pause the video, look these questions over, and get ready to copy some vocab and take some notes. In the last video, you learned how differences between the North and the South led to disunity between those two regions of the United States, and we call this disunity sectionalism. Remember, the North was more industrial, had more cities, and had an economy based on free labor. The South was more agricultural, more rural, and had an economy based on slave labor, especially cotton. Now we're going to look at two specific conflicts that these sectional differences created. You don't need to copy any vocab yet. The first conflict is called the Missouri Compromise, and it involved a disagreement over the issue of slavery in new states. New lands acquired by the U.S. were called territories, and according to the Northwest Ordinance, when a territory had 60,000 people living in it, it could ask to become a new state. If it gained statehood, it got its own state government, including a governor, and most importantly, it got representatives in Congress. In 1820, a territory formed from the land in the Louisiana Purchase was ready to become a state, and this new state was called Missouri. But here was the issue. Would Missouri be a state that allowed slavery? The Southerners said yes, they wanted more slave states. The Northerners said no, they wanted more free states. More free states would mean more representatives in Congress who would support Northern interests like free labor. Okay, copy this down. The conflict was resolved through what is called the Missouri Compromise. Missouri was admitted to the U.S. as a slave state, but a new state was created in the North called Maine, and Maine became a free state. Both Missouri and Maine would have one representative in Congress, so they would balance each other out. Neither section would gain more power. Also, the compromise said that no new slave states could be created north of 3630 degrees latitude. All right, take a look at this map. Here is Maine up in the north. Here is Missouri, the new slave state. And here is the line of latitude of 3630. No new slave states could be created north of that line. In hindsight, the Missouri Compromise was a failure because it was only a temporary fix. It was a band-aid. It didn't really resolve the issue of whether new states would allow slavery. This issue was a constant source of disagreement between the North and the South, and literally the exact same conflict would happen 30 years later in 1850. You'll learn about that in the next unit. So, to sum up, Western expansion led to a lot more slavery in new lands, and it led to more conflict between the North and the South. The second conflict between North and South is called the nullification crisis, and the issue here was something called a tariff. A tariff is a tax on any product that is imported. Imported means it's being sold by a company in a different country. Tariffs sound confusing, but they're actually very easy to understand. I want you to imagine that you are living in the US in 1800 and you need to buy a new cotton shirt. You have two options. You can buy your shirt from the Massachusetts Shirt Company in Boston, Massachusetts in the USA, or you can buy it from a company in London, England called the British Shirt Company. Both of these companies make the same shirt, but their prices are slightly different. The Massachusetts Shirt Company sells cotton shirts for $12, while the British Shirt Company sells them for just $10. Okay, assuming the shirts are exactly the same quality, which one would you buy? I'd probably buy the British shirt because it's cheaper. But here's the issue. If everyone in America bought the cheaper British shirt, the factory owner in Massachusetts wouldn't make any money. So, all the factory owners in Massachusetts and the factory owners in all the other northern states in the US, they go to the government and they ask Congress to pass a tariff. If a tariff is passed, there will be, say, a 30% tax added to all the imported products, including the shirts from England. With the 30% tariff, the shirt from the Massachusetts shirt company will still cost $12. The price didn't change because those shirts aren't imported. They're made in America, so there's no tariff added. It's not an import. The London shirt, however, the British shirt company, it now costs $13. That's the original $10 plus the 30% tax on imported goods. So now the Massachusetts shirt company is $12, and customers buy that shirt because it's cheaper. And the factory owners in Boston are very happy. Tariffs were great for factory owners, and since the North had a lot of factories, many Northerners supported tariffs. But tariffs weren't great for consumers because they led to higher prices of goods. Remember, the consumer was paying $10 for the shirt from England before the tariff. Now they're paying $12 for the US shirt. Southerners were especially against tariffs because they had no factories, and nobody in the South was benefiting from the tariffs. In fact, they were losing money because the goods that they bought were now more expensive than they were before. In 1828, Congress passed a new tariff that placed a 35% tax on imports. The South was outraged. They called it the Tariff of Abominations. And in response, the southern state of South Carolina decided to nullify the law. Do you remember nullification? That's when states decide to ignore federal laws. This was a major challenge to the federal government because South Carolina was saying, we're not going to follow your laws. But the federal government backed down and Congress passed a new, lower tariff, which pleased the Southerners. Although this conflict dissipated, it, like the Missouri Compromise, highlighted the growing tension between the North and the South. All right, it's time to review the objectives. If you don't know the answer to any of them, please rewind the video and look again. And I will see you in class. Bye, students.